In this video, I'll talk about a special series of topographic maps that show an invisible part of the landscape, land ownership. Most of the public land in the United States is out west, and it makes for great hiking, hunting, and general exploring. There are also landowners besides the feds, and some public lands aren't open to the public. Sometimes there's nothing on the ground to indicate who owns what. Standard topo maps provide some indication of land ownership, but usually not enough to rely on. Here the red arrow is pointing to the edge of Cibola National Forest next to Albuquerque, but there are private neighborhoods inside the marked forest boundary. Fortunately, the government, specifically the Bureau of Land Management, publishes land ownership maps for the western states. The maps cover the states shown in yellow: New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, the other states between those four in the Pacific Ocean, and Alaska. I'll put a link in the description box so you can find those maps online. This video provides a quick introduction to the maps. On this map segment, the red arrow points to the south end of Mesa Portales, which I used earlier in this video series. You may remember the big notch in the south end of the mesa. Now the arrow indicates where the Continental Divide Trail passes over the east end of Mesa Portales. The trail is shown as a fuzzy red line that extends from the southeast corner of the map up to the northeast corner. In this video, I'm more interested in this township west and southwest of Mesa Portales. In a previous video, I mentioned that townships are 6 miles on a side and include 36 sections, which are 1 by 1 mile squares. Here the red arrows indicate the corners of the township. Within that 36 square mile area, the goldenrod yellow and pinkish land is managed by the Bureau of Land Management, or BLM. If you can find public access to that land, you can use it for lawful recreational purposes. To find out exactly what's lawful, visit your local BLM office or check online. The township includes one section marked in blue. That's a 1 mile by 1 mile piece of New Mexico State Trust land, and while it's public land, the rules are different. Before doing anything on New Mexico State Trust land, you need to contact the State Land Office in Santa Fe. Other states have rural blocks of state land, and each state has its own rules for that land. This red arrow indicates a quarter section marked with dark orange. That's a 1/2 mile by 1/2 mile piece of tribal land, and there's more tribal land to the west. You don't want to be on tribal land without permission. Native Americans had most of their land stolen from them, so they're understandably touchy about the land they have left. The last kind of land in the township is private land, which is left white. Trust me, you don't want to be caught sneaking onto some rancher's private land. Let's take another look at that local section of the Continental Divide Trail. Now that you can read the local land ownership, you can see how the trail is routed to stay on BLM land and avoid private land. The township next to Mesa Portales doesn't include public forest, so I'll show it on this map segment. Here the solid green doesn't indicate plant cover, it indicates land ownership. Specifically, we're looking at federal land managed by the Forest Service. Part of the forest is darker green because it's a wilderness area within the national forest. That big patch of dark orange is more tribal land. It has an irregular shape because Sandia Pueblo was there long before the U.S. divided the West into townships and sections. But then, the shape of the parcel isn't the critical variable. It's being able to identify what type of land ownership is involved, and therefore which rules apply. The U.S. military is a big landowner out west. You absolutely do not want to be on a military reservation without all sorts of permission. Here the arrow is pointing to Forest Service land, so you might think you can hike there. However, the tip of the arrow is pointing to a statement, quote, "no public access," unquote. This part of the national forest is used as part of a military base, as the map indicates. So again, don't go there. I'm including this particular piece of land as a warning. When you're using the land ownership maps, you need to pay attention to the details. If all this color coding for land ownership seems confusing, don't worry. Land ownership maps include a legend explaining which color goes with which type of land. Before leaving the issue of land ownership, I'll explain a key fact about public land. The arrow is pointing to 2 partial sections that are goldenrod color so they're managed by the BLM. You may think that because they're public land, you automatically have access to them. Not so. The 2 BLM parcels are surrounded by private land, and there may or may not be a way for you to legally cross that private land to reach the public land. In fact, you're not even allowed to hop over the fences at the corner where the 2 parcels touch to get from one public parcel to the other. I think that all public land should have public access, but in this instance the law favors private landowners. I'm bringing this up here so you don't accidentally break the law.